Wichamar, Shwi area crossing. When the dreamer awakes, the world will be torn asunder. So saith the Nawadim prophecies. Artenye Shunla, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Walk the Crossroads. This is your host, Padre Gog, and tonight we will be discussing an overview of Altear itself, the center world of the nine that are connected via Altear, the world tree. As it is called in Elder tongue, Altear is from the word altar in Gaelic, which means the other world, and was inspired by the Fae stories that we often see in modern mythology, and also in mystical mythology of how trees and other parts of the land connect us to the world where the creatures and spirits that we live and worship with live. These are the Fae, the descendants of gods and mortal alike that were created during the time known as the Silver Age, when High King Oberon ruled in the four great cities, at the feet of Altear, the world tree itself. All of this began when the four primordials, the beings that made Altear itself, molded the world through their very actions. However, at one point, one of the primordials, Abyss, the youngest of them all, turned upon the other three and made a deal with the creatures known simply as those of the outer ways. These sort of elder god creatures that are beyond alien comprehension itself. Well, Maker became Abyss, and he turned upon his compatriots. Lord Fire, the king of the depths and the father of stone, his wife, Lady Ice, the mother of the skies and the queen of the seas. And finally, Child Fate, also known as Titania, High Queen of all of Altear. At one point, Maker completely infected both Lord Fire and Lady Ice with a foul parasite and forced them to battle to the death. However, his sibling, Child Fate, was able to cure both, and through this action, they were both removed of the evil influences. However, they were completely mortally wounded and died in each other's embrace. From their embrace was born Altear, the first child of the right of ice and fire. Altear then grew out into the cosmos and connected the nine worlds together via the Freyna, the ancient roots of the world tree itself. These are the ones that Nithog is supposedly devouring in Norse mythology. I want to correct one thing. Nithog is not a dragon. You will meet him at some point in one of the many stories. Now, after this period of time, which was known as the Golden Age, based upon the Greek ages of Arcadia, the children, the titans of Lord Fire and Lady Ice were born and went out into the world and founded their own realms. Chief among them was Nuada, a young lad who barely anyone knew who he really was. He was not in fact a titan. He was actually the child of a titan by the name of Anna, also known as Ishtar, Astarte, and Danu. She herself traveled with a group of companions. First was Bori, the predecessor of all Asir, and then there was Ymir, who we know here on Earth as the father of trolls and giants. Now, the strange thing about Ymir is that after a great quest to save his mentor, Child Fate, they actually had children. These children became the rulers of the Grand Empire of the west of the lands we call Everin, the lands known as the Great Cities, and that is where Ymir became known as High King Oberon, and Child Fate became known as Lady Titania, High Queen of Altear itself. Now, this period is known as the Silver Age, a time of the elder magics, and when humans were all actively being brought through and manipulated by the Titans and their children, the Immortals, to the lands of Altear, and the grand colonization of various worlds began. It is also a time when the Immortals themselves went about the land, and along with their followers, their own children, the Fae, began to carve out the many stories that we still hear in the mortal land of Agyra still tell today, such as Heracles, Thor fighting Utgard Loki, Gilgamesh, the stories of the Amazons, the stories of Izanagi and Izanami, the various stories found in other parts of the world. Even Anansi was an immortal, a fey creature that is far beyond our comprehension. As it is said across many parts of the fey world in the Nine Worlds, all begins and ends with Altear. Altear is not the central root, but is one of the most important roots of the world tree itself. And after the ending of the Silver Age and a time known as the Giants' War, when the descendants of Abyss, or Maker as he was called, turned upon the various fey creatures and fey lords across the land, and they cast down the great cities. They destroyed the great ancient empire. They destroyed the empire of Zeus, of the Jade King, and even the great jaguar people of the southern one of the southern continents in Altear. Once this all happened, all of the immortals except a select few were basically killed. All of the titans were killed. This brought about a dark age, and during this time is when the Feyre over in Tyre Shah Serana, the Avalon cluster land of stars, were cut off, when the Fae and Agyra were cut off, when the far dreaming occurred for the Amazons, and much more. When all of this happened, everything that was magical suddenly changed. The world changed. The Elder Magics ended, and anything that was before was now gone. This was a dark time. Now, after all this, the new nations of Altear have arisen, especially in the lands of Everin, where the previous game, literally by the name of Altear, took place. The lands of Everin were composed of the High Kingdom of Kells, Elysia in the south, which is made up of various city-states. In the far east, you had the Asherid Empire and the various sand states of the south. You then also had Hidden Marath. To the north, you had the former lands of Villagifa, which were part of the ancient, powerful empire known as Norgard. Then you had the holds of Norland into the east, in these deep mountain crags. You had the Dwerg Commonwealth. This was only one of many lands, including the Wandering Steppe, the lands of Ishua, and also a land that for some reason I am forgetting. Altear itself is a mishmash of various mythologies that were carved up through many years of research and consideration. The lore itself was written over a period of time and has come to evolve into a very depth-filled concept. Magic in Altear is often split between what we consider the Elder Magics, which was wielded by the Titans and the Immortals, and the younger magics, the magics of the Tapestry, the magics of the Compact. You see, after the Giants' War, all of the Fae races were basically forced to either abide and agree to the compact of the Tapestry, or would go without magic. The Compact basically states that only certain bloodlines can possess magic innately. These are the Sown. Now, magic in this world is effectively done via one trying to impose their will upon fate. Magic is done through the tapestry of life, of fate itself. At the base of the world tree, the children of fate, the Norns and other entities you might know them by, weave this tapestry. When someone dies, their thread is cut and they go to the lands of the dead. Now, magic causes one's thread to vibrate, and there is actually a limitation on this. You can actually destroy your very thread by vibrating too much, by alighting it with too much power. And for this very reason, the world tree is the source of all magic. It takes magic into Altear and it channels it outwards to the other 9 worlds. And for this very reason, we have the Compact, which actually is enforced. Certain magics cannot mix. If a race, a people, they're actually part of the race known as the High Folk, tries to use the magic of another race, it actually explodes. It cannot happen. It's a rule against the rule of the tapestry, because the magic of a race or of a species or of a sub-people or ethnic group is embedded into their very blood. Now, not all races abide by the Compact. Some of them cheat. They use regents, they use runes, they use even singing to get what they want. Now, magic is an integral and an innate and a native aspect of Altear life. Everybody uses it, and everybody to a degree has access to it. It just requires training. Now, not all races have it innately, but even at that point, they're still stealing it somehow. And a lot of it occurs because they found a way to work around the rules set down by fate, set down by High Queen Titania, who rules still this world quietly from the Valley of Fate at the foot of Crenyathir itself. Now, many of the worlds that are connected to this are hosting various members who are descended from the races that once exist. There was once only one race at one point, the Fey race, which after great upheaval, mutation, and curses split and became many. Now, one of the main races in Altear at the moment is the High Folk, the descendants of the aristocracy and the middle classes of the four great cities. Then you have the Satkai set, the descendants of the guards who once let a horrible invasion force in through a gate and were cursed forever by a wildling hunting goddess of the north. Then you also have the Disir, the children of Fate herself. These are the ones who come via Bori, whose children the Asir eventually intermixed with giants. This is one reason why the Asir themselves are so tall, but at the same time, versus their smaller kinfolk, the travelers are so small. They are the children of Fate. Thus, they have special abilities related to that. Then you also have the Jadeborn, a aristocratic people who live in the lands of Nara and are said to be descended by the Jade Emperor himself, the ruler of heaven, in their mythology. Now, all these various races have different peoples. The High Folk have the Shi, there's also the Vila, and then there's the Asherid people. Then the Disir have the Travelers and the Asir. The Jadeborn have many different racial groups within, and these people include the various peoples of Nara, which includes the Mikujin of Wa, the Chanim of Chan, and also the Xianta of the Wandering Steppe, who are actually related to people known as the Pazariks, who have recently started invading the peoples of Everin. Now, another race is also what we call Elysians, or a sort of Leonin people who descend from the lines of Zeus, from Poseidon, and other Olympian gods. They have their own magics which relate to basically a form of sacrifice and a connection they simply call Logos. And among them at times are demigods, these people who have great strength or great speed, and they're simply known as the Godborn. Now, there's more lore in Altear itself that I could cover in hours upon hours of discussion, but this simple overview, I hope, can give you an idea of the scope of how Altear is the central world in the Oak Cross mythos. Another aspect of Altear that we haven't covered yet outside of magic and the races is the monsters that exist in Altear. Altear is a land of monsters. It's a land of dragons. Yes, I know everybody dragons, but I'll let you know this something. Dragons in Altear occur via cursed gold that turns you into a dragon, and then you go and you kill people. One person cannot kill a dragon. It takes an entire legion of soldiers to kill a dragon. You have kelpies. You have mammoths. This is a world of mythological peoples and mythological creatures. You don't just have mammoths, you have ancient pseudo-hyena creatures known as bone crushers. They're actually based upon an ancient species that once lived in Europe. You have giant lions, you have mystical birds that can make you think there's someone there but drink blood. You have cursed races. The cursed races are people who have happened upon ancient areas or items and they become cursed. Sphinxes are the result of a curse. The Strix, or a sort of siren-like people, are related to a curse. Most of these people are not considered people. They are considered animals and are kept as pets by the other peoples. There's also the witches, or a race we call the Kanu sect. These are the progenitors of the race known as the Gwagara in Land in the Stars. They reproduce by turning other people into them, and they are actually hunted by witch hunters. So there's very much to this world. Not only does it have politics, magic, ethnic misunderstanding, different concepts of how gender works, but it's just complex in general. It attacks everything in a way that lets you see a almost perpetual Iron and Bronze Age where steel doesn't exist, where people still look for mystical sky iron, and where they still give blessings to gods, where silver causes some races to scream in pain, or where they cannot even bear iron in battle. This is a land of legend, and it is said that in the lands of Altear, the old ways that we on Earth consider dead are alive and are kept. The shadows are still kept. Now, I hope you all enjoyed the discussion tonight. If you have any comments or questions or even requests for future videos and podcasts, just post them down in the comments. Now, remember, everybody, walk the crossroads. And as the Amazons say, goodbye, spirits to you. Verhanschash.